What would you say is the biggest myth that people have about going out in the sun?
That the sun is toxic. That is absolute, utter nonsense. If it was, every wild animal and all these beautiful trees around us would have every rip-roaring disease, and it turns out we're the only animal on this planet that has chronic disease epidemics. And what do? We come out of our mama, we wear clothes, we wear sunglasses, we have sunscreen, sun cream for the people in the UK. It's almost ludicrous. If you took your 3 children to, one of the farms that are up here, and you saw a baby horse or a baby pig being born, would they come out with Abercrombie and Fitch on it? Like you put in your baby before you take baby pictures? Is there any animal that does what humans do? Maybe we need to start asking those questions right then and there. You go back and look at the data and say, why is it? Why did the dermatologist get a pass and never answer the question? Why is it that people who have the lowest vitamin D levels have the most skin cancer, the most melanoma? I mean, let's face it. If you have a low vitamin D level, it means you're not in the sun, right? But yet, those are the people that tend to get the cancers. That should stop you dead in your tracks and go, why am I putting the sunscreen on? What's the link to the sunscreen? Then you find out that sunscreen's a $6 billion industry in North America.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, so without sunscreen, you might not need to go to the dermatologist. How's that for irony? Can we create solutions when we live an indoor life? Just remember, 1910, or the beginning of the 20th century, when the Flexner Report was first come out, 9 out of 10 people worked outside. Today, 120 years later, 98% of people now work indoors. Has your doctor ever stopped to ask you that question? You happen to know a guy named John Ott who actually studied that one little thing by utilizing time-lapse photography in a school in Sarasota. And what was the only variable? Were the fake lights on or were the windows open? Can't get any simpler than that. See, the thing is, the public can do a lot more. But you want to know my complaint with the public? I think they're cognitively lazy. And the reason they're lazy is that technology algorithms have made people comfortably numb. They learn what they believe from tweets that are 140 characters. They learn from Facebook posts. They learn from letters from Dave Asprey. They learn what somebody else wants you to know. And I think you, the public, have to be a little bit more curious. So when I do interviews like this, or you listen to any of my podcasts, you're going to see something kind of interesting. I'm not trying to sell you anything except information. And it turns out all the information that I'm telling you about, or that I'm selling you, it always has the same cognitive bias. Take a look around. Why are we sitting outside? Why are we doing it on the grass while I'm grounded? I have new shoes on. In the sun. You made me wear a shirt. I guess I had to do that, but because some of the people watching this may get offended that I know that happens to be a bad thing for me to do. They never know that unless we started talking about this. That's important. And I think it's easy. If your doctor doesn't start with going outside and getting fresh air, good water, reasonable sun, then you have no business listening to them. And you and your husband and your kids know this. I always give patients, when I first meet them, the story about the orange tree. I always take it back to something that everybody understands. So if me and your wife or your husband watching this video, or that one over there, planted an orange tree in the backyard and your kids came out and put water and nutrients in the ground, after, say, 6 months, would we get oranges? Turns out we would, right? Well, what happens if Jason or your husband or wife, comes around and puts a tarp over that tree? Are we going to get any oranges? So how about then the people watching this stop and go, how smart is it to put contact lenses, eyeglasses, or sunglasses in front of my eyes when I do know that there's these things called optic nerves that connect to my brain and my pituitary gland, and my pituitary gland makes all these hormones? Am I going to make all the hormones naturally Is this the reason why people in California, Chicago, and New York have to spend $250,000 at the fertility clinic to have babies now? Is this the reason why kids don't want to have sex anymore because they're constantly checking their phone 150 times a day, and that blue light destroys their circadian biology? That's your job. That's your job to ask. Is the digital babysitter that you bought your kids the real problem? You want to blame it on your kids, but you know what? More often than not, it turns out it's the parents' decision around the choices in the kid's environment that are important. See, when I was a kid, my mom didn't have to work. I was always outside playing baseball, football, and hockey. But guess what? These days, kids don't do that stuff anymore. Those are the questions your doc has to ask you.
Yeah.
And they don't. You know why? Can you ever find the solution if you don't really know what the problem is? And that was really the whole goal of the Flexner report, is to use curriculum and education to get doctors to think everything was scientific with someone's real idea in mind. What was their real goal? So that's why Jack's different. See, no big science words.
So left to our own devices, we are naturally optimized for health if we don't interfere with all of the civilization that
You have
we've created.
3.8 billion years of quantum randomized controlled clinical trials going on in you. You have a doctor inside your head and your body that works if you get out of its way. Do you want to know what the single biggest problem is for most modern humans? They have this quantum computer in their head called the brain that allows them to break all of nature's laws. And they do it below their own perception. I told you, just wearing clothes or putting contacts or glasses on are some of those examples. But because society or corporations have convinced us we should do this, for eyeglasses it was Coco Chanel, 1940. Nobody wore sunglasses before that. I mean, there's text and papyruses in Egypt that, yeah, people did, but those were like pharaohs. We're not talking about those people. Those are not the people that created, the 7 billion people on the planet today. Things have changed. And the thing is, a lot of people that criticize my ideas, they say, well, there's more people today than there's ever been on planet Earth that are humans. And I'm like, yeah, but guess what? Doctors have to keep them alive from 50 to 70. So are we really surviving? Are we thriving? Or are we sick? And we tethered to some big solution. I mean, the last data I saw is a 50-year-old in the United States is tethered to minimum of 10 medicines. To me, that's preposterous. But that's really awesome news, man, if you're a Pfizer stakeholder. It's really awesome news if you're behind Gilead like Dr. Fauci is. It's a really good thing if you're tied to Craig Ventnor's stuff or almost any research. Remember, all research is funded by these people. So you have to start to ask yourself, isn't the curriculum, isn't the research, isn't the idea set still the biggest impediment we have today? Have we now just figured out how to cheat with code? Now it's even easier to do. That's what people don't understand. That's what really makes me different. I actually get you to look under rocks that you didn't even know where the problem was. And I've told all the people that follow me, talent only gets you so far. True genius is when you start to look in places that nobody ever thinks to look because you ask questions that nobody else thinks to ask. You force people to look at things that they haven't seen. And I think the mark of a great leader is to take people not where they should go, where they ought to go. That's the focus. You want to learn about this? You find somebody who can teach you about nature, teach you about the basics in biology. You get those things right, you'll be unstoppable.
Right. That's That's a beautiful place to stop, I think. That was amazing. Thank you.
Fucking A.